So first off, the nonprofit sector is one of the fastest growing sectors in the entire world.
The nonprofit sector is growing. There are over 1 million nonprofit organizations just in the United States, and they all need help with accounting, with social media, with programming, development. So there are a lot of jobs that are available.
There are roughly 1.5 million nonprofit organizations in the United States, and it's estimated that there will be over 600,000 job openings by the end of 2015.
Well, Slippery Rock is one of the only PASSHE schools, which are the 14 state schools, that have the nonprofit program, so it's definitely a little different. And it's really great because it's right now kind of a smaller program, and the teachers all definitely know your name. They know what your emphasis is, they know what you want to be when you leave college, and it's really cool because a lot of other majors don't have clients, but in several classes of the nonprofit major, you work with an actual nonprofit in the greater Pittsburgh area, and in some of the classes you'll make referrals to them, and you'll kind of be a consultant with the help of your teacher, or you'll write a grant for them or help with their budgeting process. So it's definitely a very hands-on program like nothing I've actually ever really seen before in any other schools.
The reason that I chose a nonprofit management major was because my first major is public health, and the majority of the positions and jobs that I will get in public health will be in a nonprofit organization.
Being a psych major, chances are I'm going to end up working in a nonprofit after I graduate, so having this minor in nonprofit leadership will really help me to be able to not only understand the people that I'm working with as a psych major, but also be able to understand how the organization is run.
The nonprofit major at Slippery Rock taught me everything I needed to know about the ins and outs of the nonprofit sector. I learned accounting, development, board development, creating a nonprofit, which I use every day in my job here at the Hemophilia Foundation.
When I was a freshman here at Slippery Rock, I was actually considering transferring, and one of the last things I did was go and have a meeting with Alice Delvecchio. And she kind of let me know that I could build my entire major and my entire program for myself. So instead of transferring somewhere else and trying to make the best of that situation also, I ended up building my own program in nonprofit management and kind of a focus in arts administration that pairs perfectly with my dance major, so that in the end I can work for a nonprofit arts organization and not just have to try to struggle as a performer when I graduate from here with a dance degree.
I went to go see Alice whenever I first thought about declaring this minor, and I didn't really know what it was. I kind of had a little bit of an idea, but she sat me down in her office for an hour, and she went over the catalog, she went over every class, every syllabus, and she pretty much made my schedule for me for the next 4 years within that minor, and she helped me make my schedule for my major in psych, and so she was just really helpful, and she really made me feel like I was empowered that I could do this.
I took a philanthropy course with our teacher Alice, and it was a nonprofit course, and I liked it so much, I was so compelled by the class that I ended up picking up the nonprofit emphasis also.
The specific major, professional studies, allows you to focus in nonprofit leadership, but it also gives you the chance to focus in areas like art, specifically to me, like art management. And I had trouble declaring a major. I came in as psychology, went to undecided, and I picked up public relations, and I have that very strategic plan to move from class to class in order to get that degree, but the professional studies major allows you to really just build your own and say, I really am interested in this, and I can focus here and get credit for these classes, and then also say, I really like this area, and it all builds into the greater picture, and it makes you way more appealing to possible employers.
In order to graduate with a degree in professional studies with a nonprofit emphasis, you actually have to do an internship. So we're not just doing all of our learning in a classroom and then just going out into the real world. And then in addition to that, actually a lot of the work that we do in our classes involves actual nonprofit organizations. So 2 of my past classes, I wasn't just sitting in a classroom. We had field work to do, and we were actually held accountable for the results within that organization. and making things a lot better for them.
So specifically working in the nonprofit sector and learning about the best practices, fundraising, how to communicate with possible employers, it really just makes you more attractive to possibly opening up a career in which you will help people, help the group of people that you desire.
My experiences at Slippery Rock from all of the courses in the nonprofit major or minor, however you want to take it, really helped me in my job today. The nonprofit management course helped me learn the ins and outs of a nonprofit organization. I learned everything that I used in my day-to-day work.
So in our classes, we actually have to do the tasks that you would actually have to do in a nonprofit organization. So we make and balance a budget, we create programs. There are very few times where you ever sit there and read a textbook and answer questions. I've taken maybe 3 tests in nonprofit classes, but I'm always graded on case studies and my actual physical nonprofit work.
So when I plan to apply for a position in the public health concentration, I will be able to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining because I will know how to do all the management side of a nonprofit organization. I will know how to administer tasks and manage volunteers, manage staff within the nonprofit sector, which is really important.
One really cool thing that I did outside of the school was this summer, I actually lived in Africa for a month and a half, and I developed a gymnastics program there for kids who didn't have anywhere to go after school. And it wasn't in the most remote of places in Africa, but it was very dangerous there. And so the kids who didn't have anywhere to go after school were prime examples of kids who would get into trouble. So I took what I learned in nonprofit, because when you take your intro class, you basically learn how to run a nonprofit for the next day. You can pick up and really run the nonprofit right then and there. So I took those skills and built a gymnastics program that's actually still going on in Africa. So that's something different that I can put on a resume that not many people have.
Instead of just learning, taking a test, and then forgetting everything, we actually used everything we learned in the real world, which I think that helped me even stay with my job now. Working in the nonprofit sector is very rewarding. When you work in a for-profit company, you sell a product or a service, but you don't get to see how it directly affects somebody. And with the nonprofit sector, you are really like helping someone's life. Like, we educate our members on bleeding disorders, and we also provide medical ID bracelets, so we get to see how that directly impacts their lives.
Nonprofit leadership will help me to be more marketable to my future employer by giving me a sense of what it means to be a leader within the organization and just understanding how it works from the inside out.
There isn't very far you can go in the world without running into something that involves a nonprofit organization. No matter what major you are, you're going to run into it at one point or the other. And it's always a good thing to have in your back pocket that, hey, I can work with this type of an organization.
I think everyone should have the opportunity to work with nonprofits because it's really satisfying and rewarding to be able to serve other people in a career that you love.
Because of my experience at Slippery Rock University with the Nonprofit Leadership Program, I'm completely confident that I can go forward into the future and make a difference while making a living.
I finally realized that I can make a difference while making a living, and that's what matters most.
Through getting a degree in public relations as well as professional studies in nonprofit leadership, I will be able to make a difference while making a stable living.
I hear a lot of the time, oh, you work in a nonprofit so you don't make any money. Well, that's not true.
Everyone's really worried about money in this economy. You know, how are you going to make money in nonprofit? Doesn't really sound like you can make money, but once you get in and realize that the days of helping people going unnoticed aren't really around anymore, it's really reassuring because you really can make money in nonprofit, and you can make money by changing the world, which is, I think, the most rewarding thing about picking up this major.